Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the Amazon Prime original, The Boys. And I really like this one. They did a really good job with this show. They do have some issues here and there, but they did a great job of making a character-driven show that has the characters driving the plot forward. Pretty much going on to the premise of, okay, what if superheroes were real and they were just as fucked up as us? Pretty much every kind of what if Superman was a complete and utter psychopath. And also kind of fused with Watchmen. They do a good job with it, and they do a really great job of balancing humor and the dark or seriousness going on. That is a really hard balancing act to achieve in these kinds of shows because you do need moments of levity, but you don't want everything to come off as a joke because there's things that would happen and I would kind of just be like, oh my god, that just happened. So, we start off and we see that we are introduced to, in the beginning, just the heroes doing their things. We see essentially their analogs of Wonder Woman and Superman stopping a crime. And of course, we see that their Superman analog, Homelander, is the one that gets most of the attention, even when they do some really weird shit. Like, he got a dude and fucking flung him, and it damaged a car, and nobody is going like, dude, you have all this awesome power. You could have stopped him easily without chucking him in the air and fucking up somebody's car. But no, you gotta get that selfie with Homelander. And it's just like, holy shit. So they stop this bank robbery and we're like, okay, this is how it is. We see some cool ass powers off. We see Queen Maeve stop the armored car pretty awesomely, but also in a way that if she wasn't where exactly she was, she would have fucking killed people. And if it hadn't stopped, this vehicle would have split off and shot. Like, whoa, all right, we're getting the stakes here. It's like, all right, cool. And we switch over to one of our important main anchor characters that we're going to have, Huey. And he works at this pretty much tech AV job, and he really doesn't stand up for himself. And of course, his girlfriend Robin is trying to get him to do that, ask for a raise and all that kind of stuff. But of course, he's like, I'll do it later and everything. She's like, oh, come on. And they're pretty much trying to make plans of moving together into an apartment and all that. And she's like off the curb, and then suddenly out of nowhere, she gets pretty much atomized by a speedster being like, sorry, I gotta be somewhere, and goes off. And Huey is standing there with her arms. And now granted, we've seen this in the trailers and all this, but this is a pivotal, traumatic moment for this character. This is a spark that drives the next kind of narrative going. It's like, holy shit, because then, of course, all these heroes are under this giant corporation, Vought, and they would be like, hey, okay, we understand that that was your girlfriend. We're going to offer you $45,000 and have you sign an NDA. Of course, he's like, no, let me think about it. We see him going through his head and saying the things that he would want to say, but he doesn't say any of those yet. And we don't see him go completely off kilter and go completely crazy, but we see that he is having a war within himself to be the presentable Huey, the Huey he's been his whole life, and the rage and the injustice of what has happened of his girlfriend being run through by a soup. So he's just acting like he normally would, and he's trying to figure out a way to sue Vought. But of course, his dad's like, just don't do that. You and I, neither of us have the fight in us. And of course, that's when we get in Billy Butcher. He's working at his job, and he comes in and like, hey, why don't you kind of help me out here? I can help you get your justice and all that, and you can help me do my shady kind of stuff. And Billy Butcher is an asshole, but he gets humanized as this season goes on, and he's just. I'm really interested to see where we go from where we ended this season at, because we start off being like, okay, this guy could be kind of annoying because he seems kind of one track note, but we see that is kind of how he has been dealing with things. he has amped up that part of his personality to deal with the same kind of shit that Huey's dealing with. So he's going, all right, you accept the 45 grand, but you get a personal apology from A-Train, and you plant a bug in the 7, and we get this thing going. It's like, okay, let's see how this goes. While this is going on, we also see that we have another anchor character, Annie, aka Starlight, who is going to be joining the 7 because Lamplighter is going to retire. He is an important character that will be factored in later on, mainly in the background. We don't get what's going on with him in this season, but he is pivotal to events that have gone on. So, she's all excited. Her mom's like, we've been training for this and doing all this. We see her doing all of her powers and all that. It's like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. We see her go through her interview, and hey, she comes into the whole thing and is like, oh, okay. And she's supposedly had this big day, and she meets the Deep, who was like one of her favorite superheroes, and he threatens her, like, perform oral sex on me, or I'll make sure you don't get into the 7. And it's like, that's really fucked up. She goes through with it, and she's not happy about it, and of course Queen Maeve is telling her to fucking deal with it, while we find out that Translucent, their invisible guy, has been in there the whole time, and then reappears, and then goes out like, whatever. Holy shit! So that's her kind of pivotal moment and her disillusionment with what's going on. That, of course, is important going throughout. The Deep, he's important in that respect and in certain others, but we see kind of his stuff. My problem with the Deep is that when we see some of the stuff going on with his story, it isn't put in places that it naturally kind of flows. So it kind of messes with the pacing in certain respects in where it kind of comes in. Because you're like, oh, okay, Huey's and Annie's pretty much parallel pretty well, and you can do a nice back and forth of things going on at once. The Deep stuff, while important, kind of breaks up the flow sometimes. So they're kind of getting into it. She's adjusting to being a superhero and all that, especially in the 7, pretty much the Justice League / Avengers and all that. And it's not starting off good. So we see Huey is able to go in there because they kind of start to intersect a little bit. And they even met at a park bench and are talking about their woes and everything, and kind of get them to have their confidence back to do the acts that they're trying to do. So Huey goes in and freaks out to plant the bug, but pretty much does it. And then he's like, all right, cool, I got my objective done. And goes on, he tells Billy and everything, and all right, cool. But we get into a point where Billy's in his store, and we see that Translucent comes in, and you're like, why'd you plant this bug here? And pretty much tries to take out Huey. And I'm like, listen, if you were a real superhero, you wouldn't have attempted to murder this guy. But, of course, Billy comes in and rams his car in, and they fucking electrocute Translucent. But we find out that it's not... He doesn't really become invisible. He's got this, like, metallic kind of coating that he can use to kind of reflect light and all that. So the shock didn't really do that much damage to him. And they kidnap him. Billy's like, okay, here's Frenchie. He'll know what to do. And Frenchie's like, why are you pulling me into this? We broke up for a reason. Because evidently there was a team or whatnot. It's like, all right, fine. But they find this restaurant. They're trying to figure out what to do with him. They try and shoot him. Not working and all that. God, all this is going on. Homelander's like, hey, this dude's been gone for a while. We kind of need to find him. It's like, fine, whatever. Goes off. We see that Starlight's dealing with the Deep, being like, hey, if you ever come near me, if you ever try and touch me again, I'm going to kill you. As they're doing their stupid, pretty much staged heroic rescues and everything. They, like, have it down pat. And it's really just disillusioning. Because Starlight takes one side, the Deep takes the other, and they get these people who are just pretty much doing, using Vought merchandise to run drugs and shit. It's like, wow, okay. But it's it's mainly when you see the nuts and bolts of like the team just comes out and they have to do the sound bites and all. I was like, wow. And Starlight's just like, this is stupid. So they're trying to figure out what to do with Translucent, make sure that Homelander doesn't get near him. And Frenchie has the idea, oh, okay, we can't shoot him, we can't electrocute him. He's like a turtle. What about his insides? So they get the bright idea to shove like plastic explosives up his ass. They like shocked his ass. And it's like, what'd you do? There's plastic explosives up your ass. It's like, okay, I'll tell you about it. And talking about how A-Train was running to some place and being like, hey, there's something important that he was doing. It's like, oh, okay. But we get to a point where Homelander was really close. Billy and Frenchie had to deal with that. But, of course, since Translucent was trying to pretty much talk Huey out of doing anything crazy, he's, of course, the one that's got the detonator. He's like, you're not going to do anything. And, of course, Huey's had enough of this and chunks Translucent. And that is another pivotal moment and a change from he murdered someone. Now, granted, that dude tried to kill him, but he has murdered someone and murdered someone who is a superhero and part of the Seven. It's like, shit. Now, this whole thing, this is like the first 2 episodes, and I was like, okay, it took a little bit pacing-wise to get here. I was like, okay, alright. It wasn't like boring, but I'm like, okay, let's kind of move this along, and then this is where things start kind of building momentum as we're going through. We see that they're trying to figure out what was going on with A-Train. They are linked to like his secret girlfriend, and they're able to get into her apartment after they've hooked up with the other person that was part of the boys, Mother's Milk. I still don't know why they call him that. I hope we get them. Okay, that's an interesting code name. I might have missed it because for some odd reason there's a weird disconnect from what was going, not disconnect, but like weirdness in volume of like dialogue going on at certain points and background music going on at certain points. So I was like, I had to watch out so that way I wasn't blasting like the show at certain points. So that way I'm like, my ears. But we find out that they've been together and that there's this compound V. And of course, A-Train needs to use it to win a race to stay the fastest person and to keep his spot locked in for the 7. And of course, his girlfriend, Popclaw, wants to go public with him, but he's like, listen, I have to wait for Vought and have that worked out, so just let me go do this. And of course, they come out and they're trying to figure out how to deal with this. And we see that Popclaw is pissed off and everything and takes some Compound V and decides to have sex with her landlord to pretty much deal with the whole rent issue. However, since she's like supercharged on Compound V, she pretty much, how do I put it? She's like sitting on the dude's face and is like going at it, and he's like, and his head fucking pops. Like, I was so shocked. I'm like, yeah, that happened. I'm like, that's fucked up, but that'll happen. Huey is like berating the boys for like, why didn't we go up and help him? It's like, we're not fast enough to do that. But they go up and they pretty much use this to blackmail her to figure out what's going on with the Compound V. So they find out that it's near some kind of noodle place because every time A-Train would come back, he would have those noodles. So they're trying to figure out what's going on. And they're able to kind of follow a triad group, and they find pretty much this person locked in a place. And Frenchie's like, I'm not letting this go. Opens it up, and it's this supercharged, it's a soup person, and she fucking annihilates the triads and kind of escapes. And I'm like, what the fuck was that? They could become so scared. They lock themselves in the room. They're like, I don't know how to deal with this. So Billy's like, okay, we have to figure out what's going on. They don't have any V at the moment, so they kind of have to go try and figure out what's going on with that. They also try and get to A-Train during the whole race to get the V, but he doesn't have it on him. That's why they went to figure out what was going on to try and get more V from Popclaw to actually get it to present to Billy's contact in the CIA, because he had gone to her to get the Mallory files. I was like, that's kind of weird, when they were dealing with the whole translucent scenario. So, they're dealing with all this. It's like, holy shit. Annie is also dealing with, she had stopped an attempted rape, and of course her handler is pissed off at that because it wasn't really a sanctioned thing, blowing up on social media, but the thing is it turned positive, and of course the head person kind of in charge of what's going on with the seven, Stillwell, is like, okay, we'll spin this, and you're going to wear this super revealing costume. It's like, and of course Starlight has to roll with it. She doesn't really like that. And that's where her and Huey kind of start to kind of get more intimate because she is at A-Train's race. And as they're trying to get the V, Frenchie is like in the locker room and he's able to run interference and they hit it off, exchange numbers, and start to have their own kind of relationship. So then we're seeing them kind of track this woman who we learn later is Kimiko, because Frenchie really wants to help her because we learn his past in that he was abused by his father, pretty much kidnapped from his mother by his father, and knows all that kind of stuff and really wants to help her. I'm like, right, that's really good character motivation. And he's trying to talk her down because he had figured out where she kind of was trying to get to, but she keeps trying to run around. A-Train at one point is trying to get her back, but they were able to kind of hold him off by pretty much getting a crowd around him, and they're able to capture her and be like, okay, what's going on here? Frenchie's able to kind of calm her down and everything, and Mother's like, okay, you have to figure out what's going on with this chick. And they hook up with another suit, Mesmer, and that was just crazy. They're pretty much able to work with him because he did insider trading and got kicked off at a Vought. So they're going like, okay, you can have time with your daughter if you help us out here. At first, he tries to use his powers because he can touch and see memories and all that kind of stuff. But she's freaked out, breaks his hand. Billy comes into effect with it, and you're like, listen, just do this or we're going to kill you. And so he's able to get her under control, and we learn, of course, her name. She was captured by this kind of terrorist organization, her and her brother, and she wants to get back there to rescue her brother. And we're finding out, oh, okay, so they're making pretty much super terrorists. Here's the big issue, man. Oh, God, it gets messed up. That's just like, alright. But they are able to get a hold of some Compound V. They got her, and Billy tries to, well, they don't get the Compound V that easily. But they're able to start figuring out where these things are going because Mother's Milk is able to get a kind of packaging detail of what's going on with the hospitals. They go to this whole kind of like Believe event by this other superhero, Ezekiel, and it's like focused on like the Christians and all that. Him and Homelander there. So Huey pretty much uses his sway with Starlight to get into Ezekiel to blackmail him because he was having sexual relations with men in the super club and pretty much wanted to know more about the Compound V. Billy and Mother's Milk go to the hospital to figure out what's going on, and we see that it's this baby that Stillwell has been messing around with. What's going on? It's like, oh, so they've been making these things like polio vaccines since like the 70s, because they dig into that. And like, oh, okay, so they got some of the Compound V, but of course Vought has some security there, and one of the craziest scenes is seeing Billy use the baby's eye beams to kill people. It was the funniest goddamn thing. It's like, because he's able to use the baby at first. Now, he doesn't do anything bad because the baby has been like in the box that is somehow able to stop the beams. It's like, bzz, 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 and then when it's stopping, he's like, come on, eye beams, and kill him. Like, oh, all right. And his dialogue towards it being like, hey, keep your nose clean, kid, otherwise I'll come back and stomp you. It's like, shit, this dude ain't fucking around. He does not like soups whatsoever. Pretty much telling Huey to be careful with Starlight and just not do it. So, this is where everything kind of starts to kind of hook up. They're able to get the Compound V. Billy goes to the CIA, but one thing that he really wants is Homelander persecuted. And we get the backstory that his wife has been missing for 8 years, and that he has the information that Homelander raped her. And we're like, okay, that's a big thing to motivate him, and that's what's been motivating him all these years. We see him pretty much in a hollow apartment watching the last video of his wife while eating a shitty Hot Pocket. That's a good scene. That really just shows how far he's come, because we saw him a flashback in bed with his wife and dog, and that he does all this stuff about Spice Girls because they were her favorite band. Even calling the boys the Spice Girls, and how they won't work without all of the team members. And that's a big thing. How do you persecute essentially Superman if he's done something like this? Because we don't know about any kind of weaknesses that he's got, which becomes important as we get to the end of the show. And while this is going on, we've seen that Vought wants to get into the military, seeing that Homelander and Queen Maeve were sent to save an airplane, but they're unable to. And Homelander's being a dick about it, so because he uses his eye beams so cavalierly, he destroyed the plane controls, and we got to get out of here. Queen Maeve, of course, wanted to save people, but he's like, I can't do anything. Screw it. We got to get out of here and live. And she decides to go with him, and he uses all this to keep getting all these things rolling. Of course, Stillwell is blackmailing people into supporting the Supes in the military, and they're almost getting to a point where they're like, okay, it's do or die with the Supes in the military, and they're like, this might not work completely. And we get to the point that Billy has decided that, all right, we've got to go to the CIA, because Mesmer decided to go to Homelander, and everybody was burned. And Starlight was thought of as a co-conspirator, but of course Queen Maeve kind of sticks up for her. That was kind of cool to kind of see her stuff going on, helping out Starlight. But now, of course, Homelander starts digging into all that kind of stuff, and we see him throughout the series just being weirder and weirder. At first, I thought he had this weird kind of Oedipal kind of complex with Stillwell, which actually gets worse as the series goes on. It's like, what does he love her? Does he see her as a mommy? It's like, oh, he does both. Because he's really jealous of the baby that she's got, and did this weird kind of pseudo breastfeeding thing. That was fucked up. Really reminded me of kind of Game of Thrones shit with Rob and Aaron and all that. And just seeing all of that kind of working out, and how he does, and berating the Seven for what's been going on, mainly that they've lost Translucent, and they got the message of Translucent's body parts with Billy's message, and A-Train killing someone and dealing with this, and the Deep, everybody's just had issues. We've seen Homelander getting nuts. He just killed someone who was part of, who was trying to blackmail Vought. The Deep had found the plane and all that, but was told to keep it under wraps by pretty much everyone. And just seeing them collide towards this one end where they're like, everybody's burned, even Mother's Milk's family and Huey's family, where Huey, his father was threatened by A-Train, but Huey's able to do this kind of cool trick around and teaming up with Kimiko to break his leg and then get his father out of there, while Billy's like, fine. Because at first, he had not gone for the offer of the CIA without Homelander being persecuted. But he decided, okay, he needs to help his team out. He goes with the CIA. It's like, all right, cool. They protect the families, and they're trying to go forward, and they bring Stillwell in. I'm like, you're screwed. We've got everything on you. But then, of course, it pops up that we see a terrorist super, and that, of course, completely cements the Supes in the military, and it's like, oh shit. Oh shit. So they can't move on this. Since the enemies have superpowered people, of course the military needs superpowered people too. So we bring this to the point of Billy's team is again super burned and fucked. Pretty much even worse than before, because At least before they had the option of going to the authorities and being like, okay, it's going to be hard going up against Vought, but now they've got to be together because everybody and their mother's going to have superpowered heroes, and it's a superpowered arms race, and it's fucked. So we have to transition then to, of course, Kimiko, Frenchie, and Mother's Milk get captured, and Billy and Huey are the only ones left in the wild. Of course, Annie confronts him about what he's done, but she, of course, then learns about Compound V, and she thought that she was born with superpowers. She, of course, confronts her mother, and she's like, what? I did this for us and everything. You chose this for me, kind of shit. It was like, that was a pretty good scene as she's like finally understanding what happened, why her father left, and as she just leaves. We get to a then pivotal moment of, okay, Billy still just wants to go after Homelander, and Huey is like, no, I want to help the rest of the people, so they split their ways. And that's how we kind of get towards the end. We see Huey have a pretty smart idea of clicking something into his mouth, like, what the hell, and getting himself captured, and he gets taken to where Mother's Milk and Frenchie are. He's like, hey, listen, got my retainer, you can pick the cuffs and everything, and get us out of here. It's like, holy shit, he's not being completely and utterly stupid. So they're able to knock the retainer out, which, by the way, is a very smart move. That's it. You get into certain parts of shows and you're like, okay, we'll have to see how this is going out. And him using a retainer and having it pretty much cemented into his mouth to then have it taken out and have Frenchie be able to get out is a very smart move. It is not a plot thing. It's something that Huey would come up with. That's cool. So they're going through and they're trying to figure out what to do and get to Kimiko. And this was pretty sweet because Huey has not had to use weaponry at all. And we get into a position where he has to. And, of course, Frenchie gets hurt, so Huey's got to cover him as Mother's Milk goes to get Kimiko. Man, he headshots one dude, and he's firing, going, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And it was just hilarious, but also great because you're like, this is a good character moment. He has been pushed into such a strange place, and he's still trying to keep himself centered. He doesn't want the revenge to take hold on him. He wants to stop A-Train and stop these soups, but he's not going to let it take him down like Billy, because they went to Mallory to understand Homelander's weaknesses, and they get Stillwell from that. And we find out that Mallory is the one that told Billy about the rape and everything, and it's important that she doesn't really want to help him because she manipulated Billy, like Billy manipulated Huey, and seeing that fucked up kind of relationship makes things make sense. And the thing is, Mallory lost her grandchildren to lamplighter burning them alive. And she holds that on Billy for some reason. I'm like, well, when we go to the end of the show and learn some more information, she did more manipulating than she'd like to let on. Because she's sitting out in the middle of nowhere watching birds. Ugh. Some people just never want to come to terms with their own kind of fuck-ups. And that is a key thing in this show, and I love seeing it explored this way. While they are trying to escape, we see that Starlight pops up because she was pissed off of Huey trying to ask for her help, but just decided to be a superhero and is trying to help him escape. And she does. Except A-Train pops up and pretty much throws a kink into everything, and he had been taking Compound V to heal his injury, but he's dealing with the effects of that. And his heart, he has a heart attack, and Huey decides to save his life instead of let him die. He starts doing CPR, but Starlight calls an ambulance and says, hey, get out of here. So I'm intrigued to see how their relationship keeps going forward, because they did have sex, they did kind of get intimate, but of course Starlight goes, I don't really know that much about you. And then when she starts learning all these things, she's kind of confused, but seeing that Vought is a horrible company opens her eyes to these things. So, let's deal with the deep stuff first, because we're getting to the crazy ass end. The deep was pretty much after the whole Believe incident, because Starlight pretty much says about the whole sexual assault and everything, he makes an apology and pretty much put in the East Bumfuck Nowhere in Ohio, and has to deal with that. He has his own, well, that was not the complete tip. He also tried to rescue a dolphin from pretty much SeaWorld, Ocean World. That was fucking hilarious because he's gotten in a van. He gets stopped by some cops, hits the brakes. The dolphin flies out of the windshield, hits the ground, and gets run over by a tractor trailer. So he's been doing a lot of fuck-ups. And of course, it's easier for Homelander to kick him pretty much out of the 7 that way. He gets into a little spat where he gets sexually assaulted as well. I'm like, damn. And we learned that once the Supes are put into the military, he's not being called back into the 7 and pretty much just goes kind of crazy. That's pretty much the end for him. We then have learned that Homelander is going and investigating all these other things as well. He tells Stillwell that he is the one that's been doing this stuff with the V and introduced the villains, and she rewards him by having sex with him. Definitely gets that epistle. Even more so towards the end. And that he is investigating what's been going on with Billy Butcher's wife, Becca Butcher. And goes, talks to pretty much the scientist in charge of creating him, and learns that she got pregnant with his kid and died giving birth, and so did the kid as well. And that Homelander is his greatest failure. And we learned that this is because he was raised in a laboratory setting. So that's not good because he never really had any parental figures to learn anything from. You see this throughout the series as he has this public persona face, bringing and being like all cheerful and everything, but once he's kind of alone, he just doesn't give a shit. He pretty much breathes the arrogance of what his superpowers give him. He's like, fuck you, I can do whatever I want. You little cocksucker motherfuckers. I'll do it. He makes his own supervillains. Doing it like a business. It's like, Jesus Christ. In what? Oh, you can understand the logic of it. But the morality and the insanity to be like, that is a good conclusion to come to, just fucking boggles your mind. Seeing him like come to these terms and what brought him to this is like, whoa. But this becomes more important because he learns that she supposedly died giving birth and so did the kid. It's like, okay. And he tries to get kind of the same information out of Stillwell. Finds that their stories don't line up. This culminates at the end of the season as Billy takes and captures Stillwell and pretty much straps a bomb to her, and Homelander comes, and it's kind of crazy. He's pretty much talking to Billy, but has been like, hey, I've been trying to look into this stuff as well. And an important thing that's not given too much emphasis, but we see that, oh yeah, her. We had a good time. We did it like 3 times. It's like, okay, was it rape? Or did Mallory spin it that way to get Billy on her side so that way she had a cannon that she could fire anywhere? Granted, she probably didn't take into account that if you just make someone into a weapon and fire it indiscriminately, you're going to deal with the consequences like your grandchildren. But the way Homelander's treating it isn't like somebody who raped someone. It's really kind of weird and definitely goes within the moral ambiguity of what's going on. And he pretty much goes at Stillwell being like, tell me the truth. And she's like, I'm scared of you. And he's like, you were so close. Your story's almost lined up. And then laser eyes are in the eyes. It's like, yep, okay. And Billy's just kind of, well, there's this thing, and decides to hit the bomb and pretty much try and take them both out and kill himself in the process. But he wakes up and we see that we're in a suburban place. And he's like, oh, you're going to want to see this. And we see Billy's wife and Homelander's son. And he's got superpowers as well. He's got the laser eyes turned on, and that's a hell of a way to end the season. That your wife's alive and had Homelander's son. You don't exactly know what the hell is going on. Your team, which you thought was pretty much burned and destroyed, is now out in the wind, and you're here under Homelander's control, and you're going, how Billy's going to get out of that? That's going to be intriguing. I know that Homelander probably has just viewed him more as a nuisance, more than anything. We'll have to see how he deals with him and what's going to be going on plot-wise. I really enjoyed this. I'm like, holy crap, that is one hell of an ending. And we really don't have to wait too long because they're already filming season 2, which I think would be coming out like next year or whatnot. So I definitely would recommend people to watch this, but not people who are squeamish or can't deal with like cursing and like crazy ass themes, like really adult and mature themes. Otherwise, it's a hoot and a holler, and it really does a great job of balancing seriousness and levity. The plot is always taken seriously, because when you see Homelander being asshole Superman, it is really sold through the actor of this thing thinks it's a god, and you don't know how to stop it. And if it views you as an ant that it wants to crush, you're fucked. Really. And you even see that with the other supers and how they have to defer to him because of what he is and what he can achieve. It's just crazy and great to see how this is going on. This would be a nice show to show the concept of, I might not like what's going on because I like to believe in superheroes and like that they're good people, but that it is executed so well and how bad and crazy and insane these people in this world are. It builds a cohesive world. It establishes rules that it adheres to, and that does not constrain the plot. That makes the plot have to work in various different ways to be like, there you go. And if it happens, it doesn't matter if you're expected to do it or not. It's like, fucking hell. So, subverting expectations aside, it doesn't really do anything that's completely crazy. So overall, I would definitely recommend this show to anybody who would like to watch a crazy-ass superhero show. So those are my opinions on the show. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.